streaks of color tear across the sky, flutter up from the marsh, glide silently through a cypress swamp. South Florida is a world of water, an oasis for large numbers of graceful wading birds.
Hello, my name is Amy Washuta, and I'm a park ranger here at Big Cypress National Preserve. And it is here where I fell in love with our feathered friends, which is not hard to do in a place that provides a home, or at least a short layover, for likely 250 to 300 species of birds, including 16 species of wading birds.
Wading birds, or large birds that feed in shallow water, abound in our vast wet prairies, swamps, and marshes. In the 1800s, explorers to South Florida described incredible numbers of birds. William Scott, an ornithologist who traveled to Florida's Gulf Coast, said that bird life was so abundant that it would be difficult to exaggerate in regard to their number. Then, beginning in the late 1800s, dark days came for South Florida's wading birds when their beautiful plumes came into fashion for women's hats. By the turn of the century, plumes were in such demand that some, such as the nuptial white plumes of the snowy egret, were worth more than twice the price of gold by the ounce. In 1902 alone, over 200,000 great egret plumes were sold in London. Countless numbers of many species of wading birds were shot for their feathers, which drastically reduced their numbers. Some species, like the snowy egret, were favorite targets and came close to extinction. Finally, in the early 1900s, a series of state and federal laws banning the shooting of wading birds and the selling of plumes brought an end to the slaughter. The next challenge wading birds faced was the encroachment of human civilization. Wading birds depend on water, and not just any water. The amount of water throughout the year in their wetland habitats largely determines the availability of food, and high-quality water is essential to their health.
Since the 1930s, wading bird numbers have plummeted by 90% in South Florida as a result of loss of habitat, altered hydrology, and contaminants including mercury and pesticides. The good news is, today efforts are underway to restore and preserve wetland habitats. Large areas of land such as Big Cypress National Preserve provide a refuge for our wading birds. Come with me, let's catch a glimpse of our wondrous waders.
A very picky eater, the wood stork or ironhead, is highly dependent on particular water levels to feed. It walks through shallow water with its bill submerged and snaps its bill on fish when it senses them. It's one of the fastest reactions in the animal kingdom. The white and glossy ibis probe for food using a distinctive decurved bill. The limpkin, named for its slow, staggered walk, has a similar bill used to pry snails out of their shells. A true beauty of the marshes, the roseate spoonbill, lives up to its name. It swishes its unusual spoon-shaped bill from side to side and snaps up food instantly when it makes contact. The great egret is a large and graceful white bird with black legs and a yellow beak. These birds get fancy during breeding season. They develop brilliant, colorful skin in their loral areas. The great blue heron stands like a statue watching over the swamp. As the largest wading bird in the continent, these adaptable and majestic birds are familiar to many of us. The little blue heron actually starts its life as a white bird and doesn't become brilliant blue until it matures. A white underside resembling a white pair of trousers identifies the tricolored heron, whose grace earned it the nickname Lady of the Waters by James Audubon. Sporting a lovely pair of golden slippers for feet, the snowy egret sprints quickly through shallow water to stir up a fish dinner. A rare treat to see, the reddish egret fishes by spreading its wings and creating shadows that attract small fish. A newcomer to South Florida, the cattle egret arrived here only a century ago from Africa. Perhaps they arrived on strong winds that blew towards Florida, Or maybe they hitched a ride on ships across the Atlantic. With a piercing red-eye stare, the night herons, indeed, work during the cover of night to fish, though these birds will sometimes grab a daytime snack as well. The green heron, our smallest heron, is also a bit shy and waits on a low branch, with notable patience for the perfect time to snag a fish. Its slinky of a neck can stretch to a great length or contract to help it strike a fish and then swallow its meal. Speaking of stretchy necks, the secretive American bittern pulls off quite the disguise act as it sways its neck exactly like the grass where it hides.
Wading birds are part of what make Big Cypress National Preserve such a wonderfully colorful place. And while their populations today are much smaller than they were historically, some populations are stable or have increased due to conservation efforts. Yet as the human population of South Florida continues to grow, their future here remains uncertain and will depend on our willingness to preserve the habitat that they need.